thank you very much. Welcome, Martin. Welcome, Iñaki. Today is a fascinating morning to talk about health tech, about genetics. I have been chosen to lead this panel because, to be honest, I have no clue about this, but I wrote a novel about it. So fiction sometimes also is good in order to inspire. The plot of the novel is based on a woman entrepreneur in this sector. And today I have two wonderful entrepreneurs that started their career in technology. They have been very, very successful and then moved into this sector of health tech, biotech, and genetics. So the first thing I'm going to be asking to them, Martin, is how did you move from what you did before into this world, and what are you doing now in this world?
Well, it's true that but what people don't know is that when I started my career, I wanted to be a doctor, and I did 4 years of pre-medicine at New York University. And the reason why that was not known is because I did build a biotech company as my first company together with Nobel Prize winner Cesar Milstein, who invented monoclonal antibodies. But then I got disappointed at the time that it took for the FDA to approve anything, let's say, and I moved to fields which in the 90s were moving faster, like telecoms, when I built Viatel, Jastel, Ya.com, and then renewable energy that we built, Olea Renovables and others. But then I went back to medicine around 2015, and it was interesting to see that medicine from the 80s to 2015, even though many people feel that we live in the fastest changing times ever, I would still argue that the fastest changing times were more between, let's say, 1900 and 1970, that between 1970 and now, that's another debate. But by the 80s, people when I went back to medicine, you would say, well, there was so much to learn, right? But there wasn't. There was some to learn. But a lot of the principles of we do now in our fertility clinics, fertility medication, with fertility, all the work we do regarding embryos and genetics, at least the basis were there in the 80s. People knew, Watson Crick had happened 20 years before, PCR technology was there, monoclonal antibodies were there, recombinant DNA. So I had to learn, but there was a lot that I had learned already.
Yeah, Iñaki?
Well, thanks a lot for organizing the panel. So in my case, I define myself as a scientist turned tech entrepreneur and now investor, investing at the intersection of AI and life sciences. I had a life in academia, PhD from Cambridge, then spent time at Columbia, Princeton, MIT, moved to New York, built 3 technology companies. The last one became quite large, 100 million revenues, almost 800 employees after it got acquired and I left. And those companies were tech companies. They were not in life sciences. But what is happening right now in life sciences and biotech is that they are becoming digital disciplines. If you think about biology, if you think about chemistry, they are zeros and ones. And it is all about how much data you are able to capture about interactions that are happening inside of your body. And what we are going to see in the next 3, 5, 10 years is that many of the biotech companies that are going to change how much or how many years we live and with what quality of life we live are going to be founded by software engineers using AI tools. Like if you think about a biotech company today, what comes to your mind is a biologist with a white coat, looking at a microscope, with a cell culture, with a freezer. But that is changing dramatically. Like the way they are going to come up with new ideas, proteins, molecules that they want to test in a mouse or in a lab is going to be generated with an LLM that you ask, can you provide me with a protein with these properties? The way you're going to test them, whether they work or not, is going to be in silico instead of in vivo or in vitro. So that means running simulations with AI instead of testing those candidates with animals. And even when you want to go to animals or cells, instead of being in a wet lab doing the experiments manually, many of these experiments are going to be run on a cloud lab that is going to be operated remotely. In the same way that you think about internet companies, that they don't have a data center anymore next to them, and the data center is operated by Google or Amazon, with automation that is happening in biology, those people are going to be in front of computers and they will codify the experiment that they want to run, and they will have a machine or a robot powered by AI that will operate maybe in Boston, maybe in Silicon Valley, maybe in India, and overnight they will get the results back. So all the tooling that you need for that to happen is driven by AI, and those are the companies that we are investing in. And those companies, the way you build them is very similar to the way you build the traditional tech companies that I built before as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So, I mean, this obviously there's a very thin line between speculative fiction and science. In this case, with AI, everything is going to be accelerating. If you were to imagine the next 10 years, for example, for diseases that affect us all as cancer, or if you were to imagine longevity, how do you envision this is going to be changing? If you had to go into the border of speculative fiction.
Well, in terms of what we do, I see very much what Iñaki was saying, that now silicon and carbon are merging, right? Like silicon is used to process zeros and ones, and carbon is all that makes us. And there's certainly like a merger of silicon and carbon in a lot of things we do. For example, we built a robot that makes people, right? And you say, well, how does that robot make people? Well, there's actually people that have been born out of this robot. The robot picks up sperm, uses machine vision, sticks the sperm into an egg, makes an embryo, which then makes a person, right? And that's how a robot can make a person. Or we use biochips, which are pieces of plastics, but they're really lab on a chip that are controlled by software. And all these models, going to your question, all these new models that are a merger of carbon molecules and silicon are the way forward for a lot of the solutions that we've been looking to find, and they have evaded us. The truth is, with cancer, with metastatic cancer, the sad news is that 95% of people who go into treatment for metastatic cancer die in the next 5 years, right? We haven't made so much progress, right? But we're beginning to make progress, understanding cancer as not as a rare occurrence, but as something that normally happens, and then it's a failure of the immune system. But then when you look at the tools that people are using to try to fight cancer, these tools involve genetic sequencing, involve Illumina machines, they involve a combination of, in the end, something that has to go into your body, and your body will not take digital information. But whatever goes into your body has been figured out through digital information. And so I think this merger of carbon and silicon is going to allow us, it's going to give us a great deal of new tools. I still think that there are a lot of problems. Let's say we focus more on fertility than longevity, but without fertility, there is no longevity, meaning without people, there's nobody to live a long time. And so I think this has to be a comprehensive solution, and a lot of the solutions for longevity may be found in genetically manipulating embryos. Like they may be found at making people who are resistant to illnesses, or certainly not selecting embryos that are likely that are going to give you diseases later in life. So even though people may think that fertility and longevity are disconnected, they're connected at the level of embryo selection, genetic testing of embryos, which can then lead to people who are better equipped with better genes to fight illness later in life.
Yep. Iñaki?
When we think about longevity, we take a very engineering approach and data-driven approach. So longevity is all about how many years you live, like life expectancy, and the quality of life, right? It's not only about trying to live 120 years, but making sure that you have vitality during those years and you continue playing tennis, you continue skiing when you are 80, 90, or 100 years old. But if you think first about why people die, usually, like from a data perspective, is like usually three main reasons. One is cardiovascular diseases, that's about 20%. Cancer, that is about 18%. And cancer is not one disease. There are like 200 types of cancer. And then the third reason is neurodegenerative diseases, right? The Parkinson, Alzheimer. The three of them have a perfect correlation with aging. Like the probability of having cancer when you are 70 is much higher than when you are 30, or Alzheimer when you are 70, much higher than when you are 30, right? So if you think about those probabilities, how it keeps increasing as you start aging, and so there is a correlation there, what you have to do is three things, right? One is trying to delay that probability. So if the probability of having cancer at 70 is 30%, you want that to be when you are 80. So one is delaying that, and with AI, you can do a lot of personalized medicine, trying to see or profile you like the type of things that you need to act on to delay when you are going to get sick. The second thing is diagnosis, and now there are a lot of tooling based on data that you take samples from your breath, from your urine, from your blood, and trying to diagnose and trying to anticipate things that are about to happen. You don't wait until you are sick, and we all know that with cancer, if you catch cancer very early on, the probability of surviving is very high. And the third thing is treating that, right? If you diagnose and you know that that person has cancer or cholesterol or like early indications of Parkinson, what you can do to treat it. And AI, as I mentioned, is going to accelerate innovation, not only for the main diseases, but even rare diseases, because with AI, with less, you do more. So more biotech companies are going to start in the same way that more internet companies started during the last 20 years, because AI and software is accelerating innovation. So if you combine those three things, like people will eventually die later. And then the second thing is quality of life.
Yeah.
But maybe we talk later about that.
I'm just going to make some brackets here, and I'm going to talk again about the novel. He venido a hablar de mi libro. No. So I'm going to just 1 minute in order to make a question. So the plot of the book basically is this woman entrepreneur. She's a very successful woman. She's into the biotech world, essentially about CRISPR and genetic modification. She has a daughter that has a mental disease, and she understands that there's a possibility of helping her daughter with this horrible bipolar disorder that she has. And obviously in a very reasonable way, but justifying her movements, she is going to justify some borderline ethical issues. No? Now, I guess we all agree that if we had a son that is blind and we can cure him thanks to genetical modification, we will all agree to do so. No? If we had a son and we want him to be with blue eyes, blonde, I don't know, Aryan, to put it more drastically, probably our society wouldn't agree on doing this. No? Although the biotechnologies for this could be close to make this possible, we wouldn't agree on doing this. No? But in between, there's a very thin borderline between curing a disease and artificially enhancing human nature. There's a very, very thin borderline. And this is the ethical question I pose in the novel, and which I don't answer, by the way, but it's an ethical question that I want you to answer from your different perspectives. No? If science allowed you to move this far, but you know that you are artificially modifying human nature, would you do it or not?
Well, we do it all the time. We own the largest group of IVF clinics in America, and we do that all the time, in the sense that we select embryos that don't have, for example, cystic fibrosis or sickle cell anemia or thalassemia or PCD or 1,000 illnesses. So the moment we're selecting embryos that don't have these deadly illnesses, we're changing the course of humanity. We also do things that are illegal in Spain and in Europe. For example, in America, it's legal to select gender, boy or girl, right? Now, this gender selection is something that I'm not in favor of it when there's a selection bias. I'm not in favor of having what China did, which they ended up with all these angry young men that cannot find women, right? Because they have a complete gender imbalance. Not only in China, they don't have enough people now, but they have significant gender imbalance, and they didn't realize that you actually needed women to have a future, which is pretty stupid of them. And so I believe you're raising very important issues. At our clinics, we have ethics committees on things we should do, because we call philosophers, it's interesting because a lot of these things are not regulated. So for example, I give you one concrete one, which is women. It is easier to get a woman of, let's say, 48, pregnant with donor eggs or her eggs of when she was 30, than a woman of 38 who's infertile with her own eggs, right? Because the uterus in women works, you can get a 65-year-old woman pregnant with donor eggs probably easier than a 40-year-old woman with her own eggs. But do we want 65-year-old women pregnant? What is their longevity? What are the children? What's going to happen to the children? The children maybe have a greater chance to be orphans, not having... So we have ethical questions all the time. The thing is that our clinics, there's the law, and the law in the States is very interesting because it changes from state to state. Like in certain states, we can do certain things. In other states, we cannot do the same things. We prefer that the states regulate these things. We don't want to be the judges of humanity, the judges of the future. We just want to help people start a family, have a healthy baby when they're ready, give them optionality, promote egg freezing so they can have women have babies later in life, empower women. Yeah, we have some ideas about what we do, but I tell you, sometimes doing the work we do, I find myself asking questions where people ask me questions as the founder and chairman of the company that I say, I don't know what is the right thing. I don't want to be an ethicist. I just want to help people. So you raise a very, very valid point, and it's very difficult to know what to do. Briefly on CRISPR and gene editing, you know that in China, the first babies that were edited were born. So we already have babies, 2 humans, that have been genetically edited, right?
Officially, no?
With CRISPR, Dr. He
Jiankun.
Yes, and that created a lot of uproar even in China, right? That they say that shouldn't be done. But if we want humans to live to be 300, not 100, if we want humans to get to 300 years of age, we will have to genetically engineer humans because we're programmed to die at 100, even if we don't get any of the illnesses that Iñaki was saying. So these are all very important issues, and I don't know, I'm not here to preach ethics, I'm here to help people have a baby.
Yeah, that's a great point and a great, very reasonable answer. No, He Jiankun actually modified these 2 babies to be immune to AIDS, which is a perfectly nice thing to do, no? But the scientific community immediately canceled this He Jiankun, no? And even the Chinese government was very tough about this because probably the scientific community understands we are not prepared and we need to have this debate, no? But there's others, there are other actors, no? And you are talking about the importance of technology in health sciences today. There are other actors that also appear in the novel, by the way, which are the biohackers. Today, we can modify life, we can modify nature in a garage. We can do it with technology. We can do it basically manipulating LLMs and trying to figure out answers in a garage and just come out with an injection and modify our genome. No? So my question to you is, are you seeing this happening? There's big noise with this. How can we regulate this? No, because the digital world and the live world are quite difficult, quite different. No,
it's almost like the common discussion now about regulating AI when there are AI models that are open source and anyone can run them on their servers if they have an NVIDIA server. CRISPR is the same, right? Actually, in many high schools in the US, they have CRISPR kits, and with $200, you can run a CRISPR experiment, right? But this thing that even Martin was mentioning about what is right and what is not right, even related to longevity, there are certain companies that are using CRISPR, but in animals instead of in humans, right? If you think about what you can do with your body to extend your life, and we are talking about longevity here, one thing is instead of fixing what is wrong in your body, and you think about your body as a car, you could replace the parts, right? And there are companies like the company from George Church that is also a co-founder of one of Martin's companies, but he has another company called eGenesis. He's a professor from Harvard and MIT that what they do is xenotransplantation, right? So a lot of people die because one of the organs starts becoming sick, right? It could be like the heart, it could be the kidney. So instead of waiting for a donor that is fully compatible with you, you will never find someone that is 100% compatible, maybe 99% compatible. What you do is you modify genetically a chimpanzee or a dog to grow hearts and kidneys and tissues and organs that are 100% compatible with you, but you have to modify them genetically. So then when something goes wrong, instead of curing it, you replace it, right? So you can freeze those organs and have them off the shelf waiting for you to get sick. And that is one of the things that you're going to do to extend your life. But even humans ourselves, we are doing many things, intervening in our body. Like if you have gray hair, you may dye it. Or I don't know, if you have wrinkles, you do surgery. Why not acting a little bit earlier with cell or gene therapies that in the end is taking your cells and modifying them or intervening on those cells genetically outside your body and putting them back in your body so your hair is not gray, right? So what is wrong with that if eventually you're going to dye your hair anyway?
No, I completely agree on the positive side, no? But with the positive, obviously, comes I mean, for me, very, very interesting debate, no? If you're applying these technologies that you can create in the garage into yourself, you know, and we have a greater scale, I mean, software and personal computing really appeared when there was a personal computer and people at their homes were writing their own code, no? And that was the moment of exponential growth of technology, of digital technologies, no? If imagine, thanks to technology, that we are able to do this in our bodies, no? I mean, why am I going to be treated by a doctor for something I can do myself, no? And this is going to be growing exponentially.
There are two issues there. One is the ethics. But the other one is the feasibility. Like, can you do it? Can you do it safely? So the issue with Dr. He and his experiment in China, and the issue is that we don't understand genetics so well. Like in the 2000, we were able to unveil the genetic code, and we have 3.5 billion pieces of information, of which very few we understand. I mean, some of the problems here is that we think we're so into the future, but we're really poking, seeing what we find with genes and CRISPR. But you may want to change immunity for AIDS, and you may end up changing mental illness or anything, because we don't really understand. So my recommendation to all these things is kind of the old recommendation of medicine. First, do no harm, and then move on. So on certain things, yes, we're pretty convinced about the way they work. But even when you look at the COVID pandemic and messenger RNA vaccines, messenger RNA vaccines were an incredible discovery, and messenger RNA can now be used to treat a lot of genetic illnesses because CRISPR like DNA makes RNA, RNA makes proteins. Proteins are chains of amino acids. Amino acids built in these chains are the building blocks of life, right? So this is what I learned when I was in biology high school, and it's never changed. And when you understand that, you say, okay, I can intervene at the DNA level, which is CRISPR, or I can intervene at the RNA level, which is messenger RNA. And that was great. But then our understanding of COVID, the vaccine, showed that we were right about some things, wrong about other things. Millions of people died because the vaccine was not ready. Millions of people died because they didn't believe in the vaccine. So then there's this human behavior. There's humans trying to understand a condition, in this case was COVID, and then science, which only publishes later, and you only know later. So you don't want to change a human to find out that when this human is, 30 or 40, something horrible happens to them, because the only experiment you can do with humans is to wait 100 years or is to wait 40 years. For example, in the case of Alzheimer's, Iñaki was saying, is like if you start doing things to people at 30, you have to wait until they're 70 to find the results. Like we don't have time. So it's very complicated. These issues are very complicated. I'm sorry not to be so clear about, oh, we should do this, we should do that. But I'd rather bring out the complexity than come up with false solutions.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We have 10 seconds, so very briefly, the doctor or the biologist of the future, what kind of academic background does he need? No, computer science is flying all around, no, but probably our doctors and our biologists are really not studying computer science, no?
So I think that the doctor of the future is going to be a GPU from NVIDIA. So the best doctor is going to be an AI doctor, the best nurse, AI nurse. The best surgeon is going to be a robotic surgeon doing robotic surgery. So
the humans are going to have no role
in the future.
As a father of 7 children, I can say that I hope that's not the case, and that we humans have a role, but I agree that the doctor of the future will be a lot assisted by humanoid robots and AI. But having said this, I think the purpose of humanity is to improve ourselves, and only in the end humans will feel this improvement.
Okay, so thank you very much. By the way, my publisher will be very happy if you buy some books outside from the auditorium. I'll be signing some books over there. Thank you very much, Martin and Iñaki, and thank you all for attending.